Mississippi Delta, 1854. The land stretched flat and endless, broken only by rows of cotton that cut through the earth like scars. From a distance, Black Briar Estate looked almost peaceful. White house on a rise, fields rolling outward, smoke rising gently from the cookhouse. But up close, it was a place where silence meant survival. Sabine learned that on her first day. She arrived in the back of a wagon with 6 others. No one spoke, not because they had nothing to say, but because they already understood. This place did not belong to them, and nothing they said would change that. Calvin Rusk stood waiting when they arrived, tall, well-dressed, still as a statue. The kind of man who didn't need to shout to be feared. Because everything around him already obeyed. He didn't look at Sabine first, he looked at the others, checked their shoulders, their hands, their teeth, then finally, his eyes landed on her. And lingered. Not with kindness, not even with curiosity, but with something colder, calculation. Put her in the field line first, he said, let's see what she is. That was how Sabine entered Black Briar. Not as a person, but as something to be tested. The quarters sat behind the main house, rows of narrow cabins pressed close together. Wood warped by heat. Roofs that leaked when it rained, air that never quite moved, at night the sounds carried. Coughing, whispers, sometimes crying. Always quickly silenced. Sabine was given a corner space on the floor, no bed, no blanket, just a thin strip of ground between 2 women who didn't ask her name. Because names didn't matter here. Not at first. Morning came before the sun. The horn blew, and the line moved. Men, women, children, all stepping into the fields like it was something they had chosen. Sabine watched everything. Not openly. Never openly. But carefully, always. She saw who spoke and who didn't. Who avoided the overseer's eyes. Who walked too slowly. Who walked too fast. Who got noticed, and who survived by not being noticed at all. Then she saw him. Wade Mercer. The overseer. Lean. Hard. Eyes too sharp for comfort. The kind of man who didn't just enforce rules, he enjoyed them. He moved along the rows on horseback, slow, watching, waiting, not for mistakes. For excuses. And when he found one, he used it.
Sabine kept her head down, hands moving, breathing steady, never too slow, never too fast. Never enough to be seen. But Wade noticed her anyway. He always noticed the ones who didn't react, didn't flinch, didn't beg, didn't break the way they were supposed to. That unsettled him. Because fear was how the system worked. And Sabine didn't show it. Not where anyone could see. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Sabine worked, carried, cleaned, endured. But that wasn't all she was doing. She was learning. She learned where the boards creaked in the barns. Which doors didn't lock properly. Which guards drank too much after dark. Which nights the master stayed in town, and which nights he didn't. She learned how long it took for a scream to carry, and where it disappeared. She learned the plantation like a map. Not to escape yet, but to understand it. Because Sabine had already decided something, long before she arrived. She would survive. But she would not stay the same. And one day, when the moment came, she would not be the one afraid. That moment hadn't come yet. But something in the air was changing. Even if no one else could feel it. Sabine could.
Nights at Black Briar were never truly quiet. Even when the fields rested, the plantation never did. There were always sounds. Low voices.
Shifting wood. Footsteps that didn't belong. And sometimes, things that were meant to stay hidden. Sabine learned quickly night was when truth moved. Not in the open, but in fragments. In whispers. In the spaces between rules. She didn't sleep much. Not because she couldn't, but because she chose not to. Sleep made you blind. And blindness got you hurt. So she listened. The older women spoke after dark. Carefully. Slowly. Names passed between them. Stories. Warnings. Who had been taken? Who had been sold? Who had disappeared? One name came up more than once. Mama Eliza. Old. Quiet. Still stronger than most. Sabine noticed how others leaned toward her. How they listened when she spoke. How even fear gave her space. It took time. But Sabine approached her. Carefully. Respectfully. Why do people listen to you? Sabine asked one night. Eliza didn't answer right away. Then she said, because I'm still here. That answer stayed with Sabine. Still here. That was power in a place like this. Not strength. Not beauty. Not anger. Endurance. But Sabine saw something else. Eliza didn't just survive. She understood. She knew when to speak. When to stay silent. When to bend. And when not to. So Sabine began watching her too. Learning. That's when she met him. Isaac. The blacksmith. Young. Strong. But quieter than most men. Not broken. Just careful. He worked near the edge of the property, where the sounds of metal could cover words. Sabine noticed that. Of course she did. Their first conversation was short. Barely a whisper. Just enough to test. You read? He asked. Sabine froze. Just for a second. Then nodded once. That was enough. After that, they found moments. Small ones. Hidden ones. By the forge. Near the waterline. In the shadow of storage sheds. Isaac brought scraps. Old paper. Broken pages. Anything with words. Sabine read them slowly at first. Then faster. Then like she had been waiting her whole life to remember how. Words turned into understanding. Understanding turned into something sharper.
Sharper. Awareness. She began to see the plantation differently. Not just as a place of control, but as a system. With patterns. With weaknesses. Nothing here is perfect, Isaac said one night. They just want you to believe it is. Sabine looked out toward the main house. Lights glowing. Music faint in the distance. Laughter that didn't belong to her world. Then she said, everything breaks. That was the moment something shifted. Not outside. Inside, Sabine stopped thinking only about surviving, and started thinking about timing. Not yet. Not soon. But someday, still, there was a problem. Wade Mercer. He was watching her more now. Too much, too closely. He found reasons to pass near her, to stop, to speak when he didn't need to. Quiet ones don't stay quiet forever, he said once. Standing too close. Close enough that she could smell the whiskey on his breath. Sabine didn't respond. Didn't move, didn't give him anything. That made it worse. Because men like him needed reactions, needed fear, needed control. And when they didn't get it, they pushed harder. Sabine knew what was coming. Not the exact moment, but the direction. Every plantation had it. That line. That night, that moment when cruelty stopped pretending. And she understood something clearly: she would not be caught unprepared. So she adjusted. Subtle. Careful. Invisible. She mapped the upper barn, not once, many times. Under different light, different hours. She tested boards. Not enough to be noticed, just enough to remember. She counted steps from door to ladder. From ladder to loft. From loft to open air. She learned where shadows fell, and where they didn't. And she waited. Because waiting, done right, wasn't weakness. It was preparation. And somewhere deep inside, Sabine knew. The night was coming. She just needed him to walk into it.
The night came without warning. No storm. No sign. Just a shift in the air, the kind only someone watching would notice. Sabine felt it before she understood it. Something tightening. Something closing in. The order came just after sundown. You. She turned. Wade Mercer stood near the edge of the yard, arms crossed, eyes fixed on her. Upper barn, he said. Now. No explanation, no reason. There never was. Sabine nodded once, nothing more, and started walking. She didn't rush, didn't slow down. Just steady, controlled. Like she had walked this path 100 times. Which she had. Behind her, boots. Not hurried, not quiet. Certain. He wanted her to hear him, to feel him there. To remember who held power. Sabine didn't turn around. Didn't give him that. The barn stood at the far edge of the property, tall, aging, wood darkened by years of storms. The wind pushed against it in long, uneven breaths. She stepped inside. The air was colder there. Dry. Dust hanging in the dark like something alive. She moved toward the ladder. Up to the loft. Just like she had been told. Every step, she already knew. Which boards would speak. Which would stay silent. At the top, she stopped. Only for a second. Then stepped forward into the shadows. Below her, the door shut. The sound echoed, then settled. He was inside. Sabine didn't move. Didn't breathe too loud. Didn't rush. Because this was the moment she had been waiting for. Not planned in detail, but prepared for. Wade climbed the ladder slowly. Confident. Unhurried. Like nothing in this place could surprise him. That was his weakness. Not cruelty. Not strength. Certainty. His head rose above the edge of the loft. Then his shoulders. Then all of him. He stepped forward. The board beneath him groaned, but held. Sabine watched him. From the dark. Exactly where she had chosen to stand. "You've been quiet," he said, voice low. Satisfied. Too quiet. He took another step. This time, the sound was different, small, almost nothing, but enough. Sabine didn't move, didn't react, she just waited. He took one more step, and the world shifted. The board gave way beneath him, sudden, violent, final. His body dropped through the gap, crashing into the level beneath, hard, uncontrolled. For a second, there was silence. Then, a sound. Raw, broken. Sabine stepped forward, slowly, carefully. She looked down through the splintered opening, at the man who had never imagined falling. He was trying to move, but couldn't. One leg twisted wrong, breathing sharp. For the first time,
his eyes weren't certain, they were afraid. Sabine said nothing, did nothing, she just stood there, watching. Because this was the moment everything changed. Below, he tried to speak, tried to call out, but the sound came out weak, unsteady. Sabine turned, walked toward the ladder, and climbed down, not to help, not to run, but to stand, where he could finally see her clearly. And when their eyes met, for the first time, he understood. This wasn't an accident.
For a moment, neither of them moved. The air inside the barn felt heavier now. Thicker. Like something had shifted, and couldn't be shifted back. Wade tried to push himself up. A sharp breath cut through his teeth. Pain stopped him. He looked down at his leg. Then back at her. His voice broke. Not from weakness, but from disbelief. Sabine didn't answer. She just stood there. Still. Unshaken. The same way she had stood in the fields. The same way she had stood under his eyes. But now, there was no pretending. You did this, he said. Not a question. A realization. Sabine tilted her head slightly. Studying him. The way he used to study others. You stepped where you always step, she said quietly. Without looking. The words landed harder than any blow. Because they were true. Outside, the wind pushed against the barn walls. Masking everything. No one would hear. Not yet. Wade reached for his belt. His hand trembled. Fingers searching for something familiar. Something that meant control. But control was gone. And he felt it. Sabine saw it too. That moment, when power leaves a man. Not slowly. All at once. He looked smaller now, not physically, but in something deeper. You think this changes anything, he said. Voice tightening. They'll come looking. They always do. Sabine took one step closer. Not rushed. Not aggressive. Just enough. Then they'll find you, she said. Like this. That was when it hit him. Not the fall. Not the pain. The truth. He wasn't in control of how this ended. For the first time in years, maybe ever. He had to wait. The same way everyone else had waited under him. Sabine turned away. Walked toward the barn door. Each step steady. Measured. Behind her, he tried to call out again. Louder this time. Desperate. But the wind swallowed it. She reached the door, paused. Not because she was unsure, but because she was choosing. This moment, this exact moment, was hers. She could run. Disappear into the dark. Leave everything behind. Or, she could stay. And let the consequences unfold. Sabine closed her eyes, just for a second. Then opened them. Decision made. She pulled the door open. Cold air rushed in. Carrying sound. Carrying change. Within minutes, lights would appear. Voices. Footsteps running. And by morning, nothing at Black Briar would feel the same. Sabine stepped out into the night. Didn't look back. Because she already knew. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning. By dawn, the whispers had already spread. Not loud, not spoken in the open, but carried from one cabin to another, from one look to the next. Something had happened, something no one could explain. They found Wade Mercer just after sunrise. Men shouting, boots running, the barn door thrown open. He was still alive, barely, broken in a way no whip could fix. They carried him out on a plank, his face pale, eyes wide, not with anger, with fear. The kind of fear he had given others returned. Calvin Rusk arrived soon after. He dismounted slowly, looked at the scene, at the shattered boards, at the man who had once controlled everything beneath him. No one spoke. No one needed to. Because something didn't add up. Accidents happened, but not like this. Not to him. Rusk stepped into the barn, walked the length of it, examining, thinking. Then he looked up, at the loft, at the broken space, and for a brief moment, his expression changed. Doubt. Outside, Sabine stood among the others. Still, silent, watching. No one pointed at her. No one spoke her name. But something passed between them. They knew. Not how. Not exactly why. But they knew this hadn't been luck. Wade was taken to the main house. The doctor called. Orders shouted. Control trying to return. But it didn't. Not fully. Because fear had changed direction. Just slightly. But enough. That day, the fields moved slower. Not enough to punish. Just enough to feel. Eyes lifted more often. Voices lingered a second longer. Silence didn't feel the same. That night, no one said Sabine's name out loud. But Mama Eliza looked at her and nodded once. It wasn't praise. It wasn't approval. It was recognition. You crossed something and came back. Sabine sat outside the cabin, looking toward the barn in the distance. Dark now. Quiet. Different. She hadn't shouted. Hadn't fought in the open. Hadn't run. But she had changed something. Something deeper than rules. Expectation. Because from that night forward, no one at Black Briar could pretend. That power only moved one way. Wade Mercer never walked the fields again, and the man who replaced him watched his steps. Carefully. Calvin Rusk never spoke about what happened, but he stopped trusting the silence, stopped assuming obedience. And Sabine remained exactly what she had always been. Quiet. Still. Watching. But now, everyone else was watching too, because they had seen something, felt something, understood something they couldn't unlearn. That strength didn't always shout, didn't always fight, didn't always run. Sometimes, it waited. And when the moment came, it didn't miss. They had called her the easiest one to break. That was the story at the beginning. But after that night, no one at Black Briar ever said it again. Because the truth had changed. And once truth changes, everything else follows.